So, hello everybody. Thank you for coming. My name is Alexandra Chisano. I am one of the program managers. In the room with me, I have Dr. Dave Chico, who is a vet here at the department, and he also manages the program. Jeff is here to go over the gateway portion of the application, and he's able to answer questions about the gateway and the application itself on the website. I'll be able to answer some general questions, but most specific questions about, if you're eligible, that kind of stuff, that should be sent to me via email in writing, and I'll have my email address listed on the PowerPoint at the end of it, and then I'll put it back at the end of the webinar as well. But to get started, I just wanted to go over some important notes. So last round we had some issues with pre-qualification. A lot of applicants were unable to get themselves pre-qualified prior to submitting their application. So in order for your application to be considered, you need to be pre-qualified in the Grants Gateway at the time that you submit the application. So if you haven't looked into that process yet, please do so right after the webinar. It's really important to get that done. If you have pre-qualified in the past, some organizations have to update their documents every year or every certain amount of time. So if you've been pre-qualified, please make sure that you are still pre-qualified. I listed the website that gives more information on pre-qualification. I should say that municipalities, towns are exempt from pre-qualifying. So some notes, those of you who have accessed the application already, if you've seen the annual statistics worksheet, which is located in the pre-submission uploads section of the Gateway application, it asks for 2016 to 2017 data, which is incorrect. So please provide information from January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2017. Additionally, with regards to match in the budget portion of the Grants Gateway, please calculate your own match. The Gateway will write in some percentages for you. Those are inaccurate for the purposes of this grant program, so please don't rely on those percentages that are automatically generated by the Gateway. Lastly, I am in the process of setting up a mailing list for updates on the application process. So if you'd like to become a part of that list, please just send me an email request and give me any email addresses that you want added to that list. Next, I just wanted to go through definition of total project cost. It's a little convoluted what we're asking for here. So there is a lot more detailed information on this, both on the RFP and on Addendum 1 of the RFP, and there are specific examples on how to set up your budget. But so for the purposes of this grant program, your total project cost may refer to a portion of your overall project. For example, if you're building a new shelter, but you're requesting funding for something like a heating and ventilation system, the total project is the heating and ventilation system, and the overall project is the building of the new shelter. So in the Gateway, your work plan and your capital budget is to reflect the total project, or in this example, the heating and ventilation system. In the program-specific questions section of the Gateway application, there's going to be a question in Section 3 titled Reasonableness of Cost. That's question 3E. You are asked to discuss your overall project and provide documentation that supports the funding of the overall project. This is all for informational purposes for the review committee to score your application. Again, Addendum 1 has very detailed examples on how to answer these questions and how to figure out total project cost versus overall project. So this is my final slide. Again, if you have specific questions about the RFP, eligibility, how to answer any program-specific questions, those should be submitted in writing to my email address, which is listed. As usual, please be patient while awaiting a response. And then help with the Grants Gateway should be directed to their help desk, and I've listed their phone number and their email address here as well. So if you have questions about pre-qualification, I'm able to answer some very general things, but usually those questions should go to the Gateway.
So just some key dates and deadlines to be aware of. Information about it. So it is called in the Grants Gateway New York State Companion Animal Capital Fund 2018-2019. When we search for it, we'll search on some of those keywords. There is a unique ID in the Grants Gateway for every grant opportunity, and this one is, as you can see right here, and actually I'm going to start underlining, is this AGM01 CACF 18-2018. Your application number, if you were to start an application, would be that number and then a 5-digit number after it. So the first person to apply would be AGM01-CACF 18-2018-00001. The deadline for applications is November 7th, 2018 at 4 p.m. Late applications are not accepted. The system prevents you from submitting an application after 4 p.m. on that date. So we want to make sure that everybody does things on time and everybody that wants to apply gets their application in before the deadline. So please don't wait until 3:58 or 3:52 or even 3 o'clock. You know, we really suggest that you try to submit your applications 24 or even 48 hours in advance, because as you'll see when I go through the application, I'm going to purposely forget to do things, and if you forgot to do things and tried to submit at the deadline, you might run out of time while you're trying to fix those things. So again, be aware of the deadline, but please try to submit well in advance, or at least in advance enough to give yourself some time to work on any issues that might arise. As Alex said, there's a Q&A period as well. Questions are due to her via writing at that email address by October 24th. And answers will be uploaded to the Gateway. I'll show you where that will be. They'll also be on the RFP page for the Agriculture website. I'll show you both of those items. And she already mentioned the email, and there's her email. It's also in the RFP and in some of the other documents you have.
I should just add that questions can be submitted up until the 24th at 4 p.m. of October. Don't wait until that day to submit your questions. Submit them as they come up.
And if you have any questions at all about any part of the RFP or the application, please forward them to us. If you're having that question, others are likely to have that question as well. We want to get the questions answered and make sure everybody's on the same page and get those answers posted to our website.
Yes, and that's a good point. So the state wants to make sure that everybody has a fair shot at this, and every question that's asked, we provide it to everybody to see, so they can see the question and they can see the answer.
When ask the question, we have to go up to our legal department for clarification and make sure the answer is consistent with all of our rules and regulations. That's why it takes a day or two before we can post that answer.
Okay, and as Alex mentioned, we do have a help desk here for the Grants Gateway. This is, again, for technical questions related to the Gateway, something about your password or your user ID, or this page seems to not be what I expected, or something like that. The help desk is available Monday through Friday, 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. We have the phone number that she pointed out, but I'll underline again right here. We have the email address, grantsgateway@its.ny.gov, and there is a website called the GrantsReform website. If you went to the Grantees tab on it, you would see other documents and resources for you, especially if you haven't yet registered or pre-qualified. You'll get information for those items on there. So the registration form is there, and information about pre-qualification is as well. We have videos walking you through the registration process and pre-qualification, and we do have webinars that are offered on a regular basis. So every Tuesday and Thursday, we have webinars for, how'd you like that underlined? Every Tuesday and Thursday, we have webinars for applying for grants, which is more generic than what we're doing here, which is specific to this one. But we also have one for how to get pre-qualified. So that's Tuesdays and Thursdays at 11:30, I believe. And you can refer to that training calendar on our website for more information. Okay, registration. So the first thing you need to do if you haven't yet registered with the Grants Gateway is you have to register your organization. All entities that wish to apply for grants in the state must be registered in the Grants Gateway. It's a pretty quick process. You just fill out a one-page form and send it in. However, you do have to get that form. It's physically a physical form. You do have to fill it out, sign it, and actually get it notarized before you can mail it in to us. So the act of us registering you is pretty quick. It takes us just a matter of minutes. But you do have to take time to get that filled out, signed by the appropriate people, and notarized. And sometimes if you're a new organization and you've never done business with the state, you're going to need an SFS vendor ID. SFS is the statewide financial system. That'll tack on another 2-3 days to obtain that number from SFS when you're registering. So if you don't have that yet, you know, it could be a good, whatever the time it takes you to fill it out and mail it, it could be another, you know, 5 or so days to get you registered. So again, if you're not registered yet in the Gateway, please start early, do that now, because you don't want to be rushing at the end. There's information about registration, and the form itself can be found on both the Grant Opportunity portal, which I'll show you, and then the Grants Reform website, what I just talked about. I'll show you both in a few minutes. So pre-qualification, another thing that Alex mentioned, but I want to say a couple other things about it. So all nonprofit organizations must be pre-qualified. If you're a municipality or a governmental entity, you don't have to be pre-qualified. Refer to the Grants Reform website for pre-qualification information. I believe I forgot to change the date here. That's not the due date, is it? Is January 10th the due date, Alex? I'm sorry.
No, it's November 7th, 2018.
Okay. Sorry about that, everybody. It is November 7th. So obviously you have to be pre-qualified by the time that the application is due. You can certainly work on both at the same time. That's no problem. Work on your pre-qualification, or somebody at your organization can be doing that at the same time while you're applying. But both of them have to be done and approved. The pre-qualification has to be approved before that due date. All right, and your status must be in pre-qualified or pre-qualified open. Okay, you're going to need to be aware of the user roles in the system as well. When we set up your organization, when you send in a registration form, you're filling out usually 2 names, and those 2 people we give this role here on the bottom left, the Grantee Delegated Administrator. This is a person who can add or edit user accounts and manage pre-qualification. So we leave it up to you to decide who gets what accounts in the Grants Gateway, who's allowed to do what with these other roles. We allow that up to you to decide. But this Grantee Delegated Administrator sets up those accounts and also manages the document vault, which is that pre-qualification process. So they'll be in charge of updating forms and uploading documents and then submitting the document vault for review to us. So these are the users, or some of the users they could set up. Up here in the top left is the grantee. And this is somebody who can start and edit an application. They can save all the information about the application, but they cannot submit it to Ag and Markets. So this might be a grant writer or somebody at your organization that, you know, is preparing the grant but is not actually the one who's signing off on it or submitting it to us. You don't have to have somebody in that role, but you do have to have somebody in one of these roles on the right. Doesn't matter which one. The Grantee Contract Signatory and the Grantee System Administrator both can do everything that the grantee can do. They can start the application, they can save application, the budget, the work plan, all the details and questions. But the addition is they can submit the application. So you need one of these roles to be able to submit the application prior to that due date. The Grantee System Admin also has some additional admin abilities, nothing more that the Grantee Delegated Admin could do. So for purposes of this, think of both of these having the same rights, the ability to start the application and then also submit it. So you must have somebody in one of these roles, Grantee Contract Signatory or Grantee System Administrator, in order to submit your application prior to the deadline. Just a quick note about the things I just said. Again, the delegated admin can add new accounts and work on the document vault, but can't work on grant applications. You must have somebody in one of those roles, either the grantee contract signatory or the grantee system administrator, because the role of the grantee can't submit the application, and it is perfectly acceptable for one person to have multiple roles and thus multiple accounts. If you're a small organization, you might be the grantee delegated admin and the grantee contract signatory. That's fine. We leave it up to you to decide who's what. But make sure that, and you can also use the same email address, same password, but you have to have a new account for each one of these roles. You can't just tack on roles to one user. You would have different logins for those different options. All right, so first I'm going to go to the Agriculture and Markets website. So if you just go to Agriculture.ny.gov, you'll get to there. And I'm just going to zoom in just to make it a little more visible. There is on the menu here on the left side, there is, which one is it? I think it's this one. Yep. So under the menu, and it's hard to read just because I zoomed in, it's obviously a little easier to get this drop down when you're in the website itself. But at Agriculture.ny.gov, under Agricultural Promotion and Protection, if you scroll down in that menu, there's a Funding Opportunities link. And if we click on that, this is information about all the current funding opportunities that are available through Ag and Markets. And if we scroll down, you can see that there is one right here. It's like the third one down, fourth one down, is the RFP for New York State Companion Animal Capital Fund. So there's a link to the RFP, instructions, Addendum 1, and Addendum 2. And I'll click on these in a few minutes, but I want to navigate through a couple other pages first. So the FAQs, or the questions and answers, will also be added here. And what I'm going to do now is go to the Grants Reform website, and that's grantsreform.ny.gov. And this is our website, like I said, which is access or information with manuals and videos and that registration form as well. So from the home page, you can go to the Grantees tab, and there are links here on the left. There's that registration form I'll look at in just a minute. If you're setting up your organization or registering, you're going to need to provide an organization chart. We've got a sample for that. We've got user guides and short, quick guides to applications and contracts, things like that. We also have pre-qualification information down here on the bottom left. So there's a vendor pre-qualification manual right here. There's a document about how to maintain pre-qualification if you already are pre-qualified. And if you were to go to the calendar here, training calendar, this is simply a Google Calendar with links to these webinars that I mentioned earlier. You can see there's a link down here to get to this one and to attend that one. One other thing is this Videos tab, and there's a couple of things here that are relevant to you. One is Apply for Funding. I'm sorry, the Apply for Funding is not, because that's generic and kind of old. Again, if you're going to do it, you should do the video. You should look through the video that we're recording from this session. But the two that would be relevant to you are registration, how to fill out the registration form and send it to us, and then the document vault and how to pre-qualify if you are a not-for-profit. Again, just to mention, not-for-profits are the only ones that have to pre-qualify. Governmental entities do not, so only for not-for-profits. Back to the Grantees tab, I do want to point out that registration form. If you click on it here, it's a PDF. You do need to print it out because you need to physically sign it, but if you want, you could fill it out, all the text boxes on your computer. You can select the type of organization that you are. Here are those grantee delegated admins. So whoever you fill out in these two blocks here will be the ones that get the initial logins for our system. You need to have your head of the organization sign the registration form, fill it out and sign it, and then you have to have it acknowledged and stamped by a notary public. All right, so that's page 1 of this, and page 2 is the instructions. If you need the SFS vendor ID, you need to fill out the substitute W-9 form. There's a link to it right here. And finally, it shows the address at which to mail this registration form. So if you haven't yet registered, get started by doing this. If you are registered already, it's a one-time deal, so you don't have to do it again, but you may have to continue with your pre-qualification. All right. So I'm going to go now to the Grants Gateway itself, and that's a different address, grantsgateway.ny.gov. Okay, I want to point out one quick thing though. A lot of people are in the habit of typing www when they go to a website, and if I was to click that here at the Grants Gateway, you see I get this error, this site is not secure. It's not really true that the Grants Gateway site is not secure. It is a secure website, but the state just doesn't put the security certificate on the www version of it. So you have to go to just grantsgateway.ny.gov, and it'll automatically bring you to the secure site, which is https grantsgateway.ny.gov. Notice the little lock icon here showing that it is a secure site. So make sure you're not using www in the address. One other thing I want to mention, and this is new, and even Dr. Chico and Alex probably don't know this, we really strongly suggest that you use Internet Explorer 11 or Microsoft Edge as your browser. I know a lot of people, I mean myself included, use Chrome or Firefox for their regular use, but the gateway really works properly and better with Internet Explorer 11 and Edge. Specifically the new, there's a new, if you've done this before, there's a new work plan section. Specifically that section will not work properly if you're using Firefox or Chrome. So we want to make sure that you avoid any issues that would require you to call the help desk or maybe make you run out of time at the end. Make sure you're using IE11 or Edge. So I'm in IE11 right now. So I've gone to the Grants Gateway, and in fact I'm logged in. Let's not be logged in. And I'm at the Grant Opportunity Portal. See the Grant Opportunity Portal home. And this is 4 little buttons, or 4 sections here on the home page. I'm going to go backwards, right to left. Registration, another link to the registration form. You can see right here is the registration form and that substitute W-9 form. If you do have a vendor ID, an SFS vendor ID, you can type that in here, click on this verify button, and see if your organization is already registered. And if it is, it'll actually tell you who your delegated admins are, so you can talk to them for them to give you access. So that was registration. Notification, you can click here. It's too late for this one, but if you wanted to be notified for any grant opportunities that were posted in the future in subjects that you're interested in, you could fill out this form and select the types of interests. You can select them all if you want, and you would receive emails anytime something is submitted or something is posted as an available grant. And then finally, browse and search. Browse will show you a whole list of grant opportunities that are available. Search is what we're going to do here to find this RFP. So you can see I could search by the agency, I could search by dates and status, or you can just type in a keyword. You don't have to type in the full name, so I'll just type in the word animal. I'm pretty sure there's only one grant opportunity right now in the state with that word, and it is. So I search for the word animal. Just remember, I'm in the portal. I haven't yet logged in yet. I'm not able to start an application. I'm just going to look at the RFP. So I search and I find the word animal, and yep, that's the one I want, the New York State Companion Animal Capital Fund. We see that it was posted on July 23rd, and remember that due date of November 7th, 2018. So if you click on this link, you'll get this overview or abstract of the grant opportunity. So there's that idea that I mentioned earlier, obviously the agency, the full name of it, contact name, and then a paragraph or two about what is this grant opportunity about. On the right side, we have a little more information. This is kind of optional information that they can provide you. This obviously is not optional. The due date and time of 4 p.m. on November 7th. There's no bidders conferences. The award date, the amount of funding that's available, they are 2-year contracts. Alex talked about, and we'll get into the $50,000 to $500,000 range, depending on certain criteria. Q&A, we already talked about that. When Q&As are posted, there will be a link, and the link would be right here to that RFP page on the agriculture website. Obviously, we haven't posted any, so there's nothing here yet. And like we said, we should have that by 10/29. Ignore the 12 a.m. That's just kind of hard-coded in there, but it's not really going to be at 12 a.m. Who can apply? Not-for-profits or governmental entities. Who are the target populations? And remember that email I said you could sign up for? That's driven by this. So if you had signed up for, let's say, agricultural supports, you would have received an email when we posted this back on July 23rd or whatever that date was. All right, and finally, this button here on the left, View Grant Opportunity. That's the actual RFP. So if I click on this, it's the same document, let me go back, the same document that I could have seen by clicking here on RFP on the Agriculture and Markets website. So I'm not going to go through the whole RFP. It is only 15 pages, but you know, it certainly is up to you to make sure that you read it in its entirety and understand it. Not only the RFP, but back to the Ag and Markets website, the instructions, the addendums, you should really make sure you're familiar with all of those. Okay, so you can see the table of contents here, talks about timelines and Q&As, and you certainly should make sure you're aware of the eligibility criteria here. Talks about registration and pre-qualification. You certainly need to understand reasonableness of cost, the different evaluation factors here. So these are what your proposals will be evaluated upon. So certainly go through all these pages here and make sure you are familiar with and have this with you really when you're doing your application. All right, so I'm not going to go through it all. I will refer to the, let me go back here, to these addendums as I get into the Grants Gateway. So let's get into the Gateway, and I'm going to start an application. So you can see here I was still at the portal. Remember, I haven't logged in yet. But if you were to click on the login button, you get your login information. Now, I'm not going to log into our live site. I'm going to go into a test site that we have. All right, so I'll click on the login button, and I'm going to be in the role of a grantee. So remember, the grantee can start the application, but I'm not going to be allowed to submit it. So my name happens to be jgrantee1, and I'll log in, and it says, welcome, Jeff, and it does affirm that I am in the role of grantee. So just a little layout of the page here. We have on the top, this kind of gray bar is searching. So you can search the portal where we just were. You can search for any applications your organization might have already started. That'll be useful later if we start our application and we want to get back to it on another day. Contracts, same deal. If you've been awarded a contract through the Grants Gateway, you could search for it there. If you've awarded a contract, maybe you have payments that you've put in for that contract, you could find them there. If you've been awarded a contract, you might have progress reports, and you might have tasks as well. So this gray bar is for searching. This black bar is kind of reference. You can see there's some link to some training materials here. Those are the items I've referred to before anyway. Your organization, so this is the organization, how it's set up in the Grants Gateway, and your delegated admin would go to this page by clicking on organizations to fill out your document vault, to fill out your organization information, and to add or edit your users. Profile is your personal profile. You could change your, your email or your password there, and then log out obviously would log you out. This blue bar we'll call the action bar. Right now it just has the show help button. But when you get into a page that you can actually manipulate, it'll have a save button on it, might have an add button and some other options as well. We'll see that as we go through. So on the home page, there are often 3 sections, but right now there's only 2. The third that's not showing is my tasks. Why? Because I don't have a task. But once I start this application, I actually will have a task, so there would be that 3rd section. So right now there's only 2. My inbox you can ignore. All it is a copy of any email you might have received from the system. It's not going to let you do anything in the system, and if you've received the email already, you've probably already read it, so there's no point in going to my inbox. But what you do want to do, and this is how you start it, and if you're to refer to the instructions that are on the Ag and Markets website, they'll tell you here, go to View Opportunities, search for the grant opportunity name. So again, I'll search for the word animal, and it's going to show me all grant opportunities with the word animal in it that my organization or myself in general, myself specifically can apply for. So again, you don't have to type the word animal. You could have typed companion or capital fund or something like that, and you would have found it. So I'll click on it. We've seen this page before, at least one that looks just like it when we were in the portal, but remember, now we're logged in. And once we're logged in, we have, instead of the ability to view the grant opportunity, we can actually start our application. So just to quickly go over that again, the act of starting your application is not through the portal. It's logging in as the right type of user, in my case, grantee, from the home page going to View Opportunities, searching for a keyword or words, finding it, clicking on it, and then clicking the button Apply for Grant Opportunity. And when I do that, You see it takes a couple seconds to process, and now I've started an application. So I'm application number 5. Remember that unique ID, AGM01, CACF 18-2018, and number 5. So we've got some new options here. We are on the application main page, which is what this menu button would bring you back to. It's got a place for the project title, grant funds requested, total project cost. Obviously, I haven't done anything yet, so those are all blank. Where do we do those things? Under here in the Forms menu. So you might notice that as I hover, it pops up the Forms menu. We're going to actually click on the word Forms menu and get into the menu itself. But I'll do that in a few minutes after I explain these other buttons. Status changes, that's where you'll actually submit the application. Remember, I can't because I'm a grantee. Management tools, there's a few things here you might want to do. Add edit people, we'll do in a little while. We'll add our signatory to it so she gets the task. You don't have to, but we'll do it anyway. And then check for errors. You could check your application to see what pages or what fields you might have missed as you were going through it. And then progress reports and related documents, you can ignore that. Those are related to if you were to receive a contract. So if you did, we deal with that later on during the contract process. So let's go back to that Forms menu. Instead of hovering it, I'll just click on it. And I see the whole menu. So a couple of these sections, the first 2, are just for your information. Contract document properties. If we were to click on that, this shows us the different documents that would make up a contract if you were to receive a contract. We just want you to be aware of the state master contract, which is this link right here. And we want you to be aware of the attachment A1, the agency or program specific terms and conditions. So if I was to click View File, I'd be able to see that information. If there were other contract documents that would be part of contracts, they'd be listed here, and obviously you can see there are none. So you can ignore this as far as there's nothing you have to enter in here, but if you're interested in what a contract would look like, here are some sample documents. And back to the Forms menu, remember that was this first one, Contract Document Properties. All right, next, application information. I could print my application if I wanted to. No point to right now because it's blank. Here's another link to the RFP. Here's another link to the instructions. And application versions, once I submit my application, there'll be a nice PDF here, which is kind of the record of my entire application that we'll be able to refer to. So we'll be able to look at that after I submit my application. So let's get into actually starting with a project. We'll start out with the project site address. And I'll just call this sample organization name. And what is my address? Let's just say it's 123 Main Street, Albany, New York. What's the county? And it's the zip 12345. Now, there are 2 options down here. You can see regional council or agency-specific region. You don't have to pick anything for these. These are both not required. You can see NA as an option, and there is only NA as an option for that. So selecting NA would be fine, but just leaving them blank is also fine. If I click on Save, it'll save that page for me, give me this green light, and not require me to fill those out. So if you were to save a page without filling out a required field, like for instance this, because it's got the red asterisk, you know it's a required field. If I hit save on this, I get an error. Project name description is a required field. So the system will save what I've typed, but it will never let me submit my application unless I've addressed all these problems wherever I have a red asterisk. All right, so I should fill that out, hit save, and that error goes away. All right, so those errors won't prevent you from continuing in the system, but it will prevent you from submitting your application. So that was easy enough. Let's go back to the Forms menu. And we'll go down to the next section, which is program-specific questions. Now, we're going to want to refer to some other parts of the system, specifically the pre-submission uploads. But let's take a look at these questions first. So it starts off with your project title. And I don't really have a good one in mind, so I'll just say any town shelter improvement project. And then we have the list of questions. So you can see we've got section 1, which is called the need assessment. This whole section is worth 40 points, and it's broken down by 1A, 1B, 1C, 1D, and 1E. Notice these are text answers, but 1E is an upload, so we'll get to that. 2 is project description. Some of these are questions with text answers and the ability for you to upload a document as well. 3 is reasonableness of cost. And again, some questions with text, some questions with text and uploads. Take a look at some of these differences. For instance, question 3E, you have to answer here, but you also have to upload because of the red asterisk. But if we looked at question 2D, you don't have to answer it, and you don't have to provide an attachment if you don't want to. All right, so I'm going to go through and start answering these questions. Now, notice what happens. If I can spell right. Really? All right, so let's say I'm typing my answer, and notice that it really only gives me 3 lines here to view what I've typed. So our suggestion to you is to type your answers in a Word document, something like Word, and then you can make sure you have the right number of characters. You can see it does a character count, and it limits us to 4,000 characters here. And you can copy and paste your answer in here. So that way you'll have in Word, you would have already done some spell checking. It retains any carriage breaks you have, or bullets or numbers or things like that. It won't retain formatting such as bolding or colors or anything like that, or fonts. So, but it will retain some basic kind of sentence structure. So that's what I suggest, copy and paste it, because you don't want to sit here and type in this question and not know exactly if you got everything. Another reason to avoid sitting here and typing is, what if you're typing, and I'm typing my answer here for number 1B, and you get interrupted with a phone call or someone stops at your desk, and then you walk away and go to lunch or something, but I forgot to save. Well, if you didn't save, after 20 minutes it will log you out of the system, and anything you haven't saved yet will be lost. So if I walked away right now and I had a whole bunch of questions answered and I didn't hit save yet, I'd get logged out and have lost all the work I've done. So even if you are copying and pasting, we strongly suggest you hit the save button periodically. You know, once every 5 or 10 minutes is fine, but certainly, like I said, it logs you out after 20 minutes. I would certainly not go more than 15 without hitting the save button. So I did hit save, but I got a bunch of errors, obviously because I didn't answer these questions yet. All right, some of them require responses, some of them require uploads like 1E and 3E. So let's go through and answer some more questions. I'll just copy all this here. There's my answer to that one. How will it positively impact animals in my organization's care? Now, we have the annual statistics report worksheet provided in the pre-submission uploads. So I haven't done that yet. I'll skip this for now. I'll answer a couple more questions and then we'll get to that. 2A is an estimate. So if you have an estimate and you want to put it, make an attachment, you can do that. I can click on Browse and go find my attachment. In my case, it's just a sample attachment, just kind of a blank PDF with the word sample attachment on it. Yours obviously would be a real document. Notice it says if you have multiple estimates, you can only upload one document, so combine multiple estimates into one PDF file. Another thing I want to mention is you cannot upload, you can, but it'll give you errors. You cannot upload a PDF that is password protected or secured. So it has to be a PDF that doesn't have a password on it. All right, so if I was to hit save now, we know I haven't answered all of my questions yet. But it did take care of the ones that I saved. And if I go down to 2A, where I made that attachment, we can see that it shows View File. I can click on it and view that attachment that I included. And of course, it's just a sample attachment. Yours would be real. I would strongly suggest that you double check when you've saved something, click on View File to make sure what you intended to upload to this question is really what you did upload. All right, so I'll go through and answer some more questions. Maybe I've got an upload for this one as well. Let's see, I don't have one for 2C or 2D. Section 3 is reasonableness of cost. 3B, 3C, answering my questions. And 3E, I know that Alex and Dr. Chico want to talk about this a little bit, so I'm going to put in an answer here, but you realize there's an upload that I'm missing. I'll hit save and I'll let them jump in if they want to talk about it at all.
Sure.
And we haven't looked at the attachment yet, so let me know if you want me to pull those up first.
So would you mind just scrolling back down to that last question? So I'll just read it out loud just for informational purposes. So this question is looking for a financial picture of the entire project. So if you are building a new shelter, but you're requesting funding for something discrete, such as an HVAC system, you're going to be discussing the new shelter that you're building in this question. Now, some people will just be doing something small. Some people will just be, you know, building a new isolation room, and they might not need to have, you know, or rather, there might not be an overarching project, and the isolation room is the sole project. That's it. In that case, you still need to answer this question, and you still need to provide an upload, but you don't have to discuss something different, if that makes sense. So in this section, the uploads that we're looking for are financial statements, which can be from a bank, it can be a resolution, it can be a line of credit, anything that proves that you have the match funding available. And then if you don't, if you are granted funding, you will still need to provide us with proof of your match funding at the time you get an award letter. However, if you don't provide proof of match funding on the application, you will score worse. So my recommendation is to provide as much information as you have in this section. Show us the funding that you have. Show us that you're ready to begin the project. I think that that's all there is to say about that. I'm sure that there will be questions about it. Again, Addendum 1 goes through it in detail. But if you do have specific questions, perhaps something specific to your organization, please email those to me.
Okay, thank you. All right, so you'll notice, remember I have two errors here. I forgot to upload 1E, and I didn't upload anything for 3E. So what is 1E? 1E is the annual statistics report worksheet provided in the pre-submission uploads. So we need to fill that out and attach it in PDF format. So let's go do that. Let's go back to our forms menu. We know we have an error on program-specific questions. We'll get to that. But we're going to go down to, we're going to skip the budget and work plan for now, and we're going to go down to pre-submission uploads. And you don't have to do all this in this order. If you wanted to do the budget first, that's fine. I'm just doing it in this order just since we were on that page already. You can see the uploads has a number of items here, and we have this annual statistics worksheet, which is the thing I just mentioned, is the first one. So it says, please download and complete the spreadsheet, attach it to question 5 of section 1 in the program-specific questions. Now there's a template here, and if I was to click it, I'm going to get an error because I'm in this test site. You would not get an error, but I just have to do one quick thing to view it. So you would just click it, and you would see this document right here. Now, Alex, I'll let you answer this if you want. Your question did say attach it as a PDF. This does not have to be a PDF as far as the system is concerned. Excel is fine, but if you really wanted that, just let us know.
I thought that documents had to be uploaded as a PDF. If they don't, then we're happy to take it as a spreadsheet as well. Okay.
So maybe we'll add that to the Q&A. Certainly feel free to PDF it if you want, but the system is fine with a Word doc or a PDF or an Excel, and this Excel would be fine. All right, so I'm not going to fill this out, but you are. You're going to fill out this table, and you can see it's not very long, not too much, but you do want to refer to some other documents that would help you. If we go back to the gateway.
I'd just like to give a reminder, the dates should not be 2016 on that worksheet. It should be January 1st, 2017 through December 31st, 2017.
Okay.
Now, Jeff, we can't change that, right?
Correct. Yeah, unfortunately, when we published it, whatever they provided as uploads, it is what it is. Okay, so there's this document here, the how do you even say that? Asylum Accord. So this file contains definitions for terms in the annual statistics worksheet, what we just mentioned here. I could click here and download that. So it's just for our reference. We don't have to fill anything out, but it helps us fill out the statistics worksheet. ASV guidelines, again, for your reference. You would click here for these documents. ASPCA, ASV shelter care checklist, Addendum 1 and Addendum 2. So Addendum 1 is viewable here and here, and also viewable here and here, Addendum 1 and Addendum 2, on the RFP page of the Agriculture website. Okay, so let's say I did fill that out, and let me save it. I'll just save it to my desktop. And I can now go back to my program-specific questions and go to 1E, browse for it, find that Excel sheet, could be a PDF as well, hit save. And that one's taken care of. And I do have an error still on 3E, so my program-specific questions are not done yet. I'm going to ignore this. The reason is I want to try to submit it later with an error to show you what would happen if you tried to submit something with an error. So we'll pretend that we don't notice that error or we forgot about it. All right, let's go now to our budget. And if we were to go, first of all, to the addendums, here's Addendum 1. And it actually gives you a couple options or a couple examples of how to fill out budgets or how a budget would show up. So I'm actually going to just follow, this is example 1. I'm going to follow example 2 and then 3 just to show you the difference between these two. If you take a look at number 2, it's a shelter serving 2 municipalities. They hope to install a new drainage system within their animal housing areas. They have a contractor estimate. They expect the total project cost to be $400,000. So there's no overarching larger project. The project is just the drainage system. So they're going to put in for, they have a $400,000 project. They're going to show that whole project as $400,000. But remember, there's a 25% match, so a quarter of $400,000 is $100,000. So they need to provide, they need to ask for, or they can ask for up to $300,000, and they need to provide and match $100,000. So let me go back to the gateway and show you what the budget looks like. You can see these are the 3 sections that would apply: acquisition, construction, administration, and then it all gets rolled up into capital summary. So let's take a look at acquisition. So I'm going to call this, let's say, drainage system. And there's only one of them. You can see item number is, if you want to put in a reference number or something. There's only one of them. It's, if applicable, I don't need to fill that out. Unit price, if applicable. Really what we're looking for is total cost. All right, so let's say my drainage system is $100,000. And we'll hit save. All right, so I put in, pretty easy, an item and the cost. All right, so if I go back to my forms menu, I could do something like construction. If I go to construction, maybe I have 2 items here. I've got cement. Now you would be more descriptive in your description. I'm just typing it a little easier. and we'll say $50,000. All right? Let's add another item here, though. In construction, I've got another one. I've got our labor. So I clicked on the Add button. Once you hit Save, you have an Add button, and I can now add a second line item in construction. And I can say a little more details you would provide, and maybe that's $150,000. All right? Now, I've only added up to $300,000 right now. I said my example would be $400. You can see 100 plus 200. I went to my summary. Let me just add one more item. Let's say I'm going to go back to construction, and I'm going to click Add, and I'll just say another item, and we'll say that's $100,000 as well. On construction, because I entered 3 items, we now have a drop-down letting us go back and forth between those items if I click the Go button, if you need to modify them or look at them or something like that. There's also this button called Category Total Summary. Now, I was very generic in what I did here, and a lot of round numbers. Your numbers are not going to be round, and hopefully you're not going to be very generic. If we click on Category Total Summary and click on Open, it'll give us a spreadsheet of everything we put into that category. And it'll let us do formulas in Excel and add up. Basically, the idea here is to make sure you got everything that you covered that you wanted to. Yep, I meant to do cement, construction labor, and another item. They all add up to the right amount. That's good. I'm happy with this category. So you don't have to save it. You don't have to really do anything with it. You don't have to click on it if you don't want to. But this would help you, this button here, if you have multiple items in a category, to make sure that you entered everything that you expected to, and they add up to what you expected them to. This does it here as well. The total category is $300,000. So we'll go back to the Forms menu. I could have hovered on it and gone there as well, and go down to Capital Summary. So this is saying, all right, for this $100,000 here, how much of this are you asking for from the grant? Let's say $50,000. And how much are you asking, or how much are you providing in match funds? Let's say $50,000. I'm going to hit Save just so I can get an error to show you what it's doing. So my totals don't add up yet because I said I have $50,000 in grant and $50,000 in match. Well, obviously $100,000 doesn't equal $400,000. All right, but I can do the same right here. I'm going to go, let's say I want, remember I need at least $100,000 in match. So let's say I have $50,000 in match here, which means, of course, I have $250,000 in grant funds. If I hit Save, no errors, and I can see that, yep, I am asking for $300,000, and I am providing $100,000, which is 25% of my match. Now, you see how it calculates it at 33%? That in the instructions and in the RFP, it does mention ignore that. So pretend this line isn't here. The reason it does that is it calculates it only on grant funds, not the total project cost, but we're looking at total project cost here. So your math should say, yes, $100,000 is 25% of $400,000, and everything's good. If you said you only had $22,000 and $53,000 here, oh, I did 5. I don't know why I did that. I wanted 42 and 57, 58. It still adds up to 100,000. We still don't have an error. The system thinks we're fine because I've got a 29% match. We're not fine because 92,000 is certainly not 25% of 400,000. So don't put in for less than you're supposed to just because the system is calculating that as above 25%. So you have to make sure that you do the math and you are sure that what you're providing in match funds is what's allowable. So I go back to 50,000 for each. I've got my 100,000, I've got my 25%. So again, ignore this category. It may, or ignore this column. It could lead you astray if you're not doing the math properly. All right, so I put in my budget. I've got, again, these 3 items. Now I'm going to go look at another example. If we take a look at this other example here. Example 3 is a shelter serving 1 municipality with a population of under 2 million and has several projects to revitalize their current facility. These projects include building a new kennels, replacing a leaking roof, adding an addition to the facility. So it's a $1 million project altogether. All 3 projects, for all 3 projects as a whole. So all of those combined is what's called the overall project. That's the $1 million project. But we're only looking for $300,000 towards the roof. So that's our total project that we're putting in for. Basically what we're saying is, in the gateway, let me go back here, in this budget, we don't care about the 2 other items that make up the $1 million. We care about the project that you're asking for funding for, kind of the sub-project, which is that roof project, all right? So a shelter serving 1 municipality with a population of under 2 million must provide a match of 50% of the total project cost. All right, so if we were to go through, and I'm not going to do that just because of time, but if we were to go through here and we filled everything out and our match said 33% here or was 25%, that's not going to work on that example type for project number 2. Because for that type of organization, I keep wanting to switch here, for that type of organization it needs to be a 50% match. So if I had a 50% match, you would see that the numbers, again, would not make sense here for you. You have to make sure that what you're saying is what you have for a match is actually 50% of the project cost. So if I was to do it here, I would say, let's do this. I'll make this 150 and 150 here and hit save. Now, the system's saying I have a 100% match. We know it's 50%, and it's 25% required. So what if I just change this by even $1, right? So if I made this 150 and $1, and this is 149, and hit save. The system's happy with it, but do the math. Is 199,999, is that 50% of 400,000? No, it is not. So while the system would think we're okay, the program will not. The program at Ag and Markets will show this as an incorrectly filled out budget. All right, so you want to make sure that you do the math separately and you make sure that it's following the criteria set forth in the instructions and in the RFP. So in this case, if I was 150, 150, it shows the match calculated as 100%. We know that, yes, 200,000 is, of course, 50% of 400,000. So please don't be even a penny off. If you need to round up on your match side. We want to make sure that you are eligible, and to be eligible, you have to follow those match guidelines. Okay, Ag and Markets, is that adequate explanation there?
Yes, that was great. The only thing that I would say, you said that we only care about the project they're requesting funding for, which is true on the budget and the work plan, but we do want to hear about the overall larger project, if there is one, on that very last question in the program-specific questions.
Right. Yep. Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to my forms menu. One more section, and that's the work plan. All right, so the work plan is actually separated into 2 sections. Now, if you applied last year, the work plan looked different. Just on July 20th, we released a new version of the work plan, and our purpose for doing that is to make it a lot easier for both the grantees, the applicants, to use it, and for the state agencies to set it up. So this one is it's kind of my first time showing it to a group like this, but the work plan overview form has not changed. You click on that, and it's your work plan period. So it'll be 12, 31, 20, 2020. That's 2 years. All of 19 and all of 20.
Yep.
Okay, project summary. You can see it allows up to 50,000 characters. So this could be a large section. Again, I would suggest you type it in Word, and it says provide a high-level overview of the project, including the overall goal and desired outcomes. Include information such as location, target population, overall numbers of persons to be served. That obviously doesn't affect you. Service delivery method and hours of operation. So we talk a little bit more about that in the RFPs. Make sure you explain your projects adequately. So let's say I've copied and pasted and I've got that text there. All right, organizational capacity. This is a section that you're not necessarily reviewed on, but it does want you to basically say, how is your organization equipped to manage this project and actually accomplish these goals? All right, so it's the organizational capacity. All right, so I've answered that question as well, and I'll hit save. Okay, so that section's pretty easy, and now we'll go to the Forms menu and we'll go to the Work Plan properties. So again, Work Plan is now one page. It used to be many pages of navigating back and forth, and this is one page. And there are instructions on the top here, and if you were to follow those, you should be in good shape. But you can see it starts with only one item, one objective. Once we hit save, it'll give us other options here. So we'll give it an objective name. And a description. And we'll hit save. You can see it allows us up to 250 characters here. The name is 75 characters, by the way. So it does have to be a little short, but you can always explain it here. And we hit save. So what happens when we hit save? I now have the ability for objective 1 to put in a task, numbered task 1.1, or I could start a new objective. Well, I have to have a task. Every objective has to have a task and a performance measure. If I was to hit save now, or you can even see it, we get an error. Objective 1 requires at least one task. Okay, well, I haven't done that yet. So I'll call it objective 1, task 1, and the description. Now, maybe I have another objective. I could start typing that now. I'm not going to, but I'll hit save. And now, since I have a task, I now have a performance measure. If I was to scroll up, look at the error. I need at least one performance measure. So you need at least, very least, one objective, one task, one performance measure. All right? So let's add my performance measure. How do I measure that I've accomplished this thing? And let's see, PM1, name. And then how am I going to explain it? Do I want to type text? Is it a number, number of animals or something? Is it a text and number? Is it a yes-no type question? I would say a lot of these are probably just text. But if it's something that is only an integer or date or yes-no, you can certainly choose that. And we'll hit save. Now notice it allows for an upload as well. The upload will never become part of the contract. Maybe it's something that you're showing an example of the form that you use or something like that. I don't really think it's required. I don't think Ag and Markets would care if you put something there, or maybe they would say, please don't, but I'll let them correct me if I'm wrong. Okay, so I've got task 1, objective 1, task 1.1, performance measure 1.1.1. I could add another PM. And here's my text. Okay, I could add a third one, and once I do that, oops, and hit save, I've now added a third. I could add a fourth and a fifth and so on. But maybe I have another task. Under objective 1, I've got objective 1 and task 1.1. Well, maybe I have another task right here. And my description, and hit save. Well, if I added another task, I needed another performance measure. So here's my performance measure. But what if I want another objective? You can see how I can keep going through here and typing in objectives, tasks, performance measures. Now, what happens, of course, though, since I added objective 2, let's go up to the top, I get an error. Objective 2, you have to provide a task and a performance measure. So I'll go add number 2 here. 2.1 is my task name and my description. And then, of course, I need a performance measure as well. I could add another task, but I certainly need a performance measure as well. All right? So things are color-coded here. If I was to scroll through here, you can see objectives. The high-level objectives are dark blue. The tasks are a little lighter. The performance measures are a little lighter. So I have objective 1, one task with 1, 2, 3, 4 performance measures, and a second task with one performance measure, and I don't have a second. I don't have a third task. I have a second objective, though, with 1 task and 1 performance measure. All right? So I could add more. So this could get kind of unwieldy if you have a lot of information. Well, that's okay. We can start shrinking things down by clicking these little drop. Oops, I hit the wrong button. I didn't mean to do that. What I did was I moved that 1 task down. You can see task 1.1, I moved into 1.2. Let me just hit that arrow. So the arrows, move them up or down in the hierarchy. What I wanted to do was the minus button. The minus will shrink these. And you can see I can shrink the whole thing if I want. And if I want to get back now into performance measure 2.1 and work on that. One thing that you might think would be nice is if it actually showed the name that you put in here. That's coming in a future update, but right now you can see we don't have that ability. But I can just click on plus and expand everything and see what I put in here. So if you've used the old system of using the work plan, this is a lot better to navigate. It's all on one page. There's no clicking around. You can see the hierarchy, and you can see I can change things. So wait a minute, 1.1.3, you know what? Really, I want it to be 1.1.2. Let me click my up arrow, and you can see this. Let me just call it old 1.1.3. So if I had this old 1.1.3 and I clicked up, now old 1.1.3 is now 1.1.2. I reordered those 2 within my task. And any hierarchy or any level of this hierarchy that you want to up or down arrow will move it up or down. If I realize objective 2 really should be objective 1, that moves the whole thing, the objective, the task, and the performance measure up to number 1, and now what I originally had number 1 is number 2. All right, so again, you can move up and down, you can collapse and expand, and there's one other thing, you can remove them. If I realize that, let's say, this one I don't want anymore, I check the box, I hit save. Now remember, old 1.1.3, if I hit save, it's gone. So I clicked on remove and I hit save and I removed it. All right? So that's my work plan. And we'll go back to the forms menu. We can see that that's filled out. Pre-submission uploads we looked at, grantee document folder. Hopefully you won't need. All this is if you have another upload to provide us, you can do it here. You can do multiples if you wanted to. We really don't want you to do it though, because we don't want these applications to be full of unnecessary documents that we didn't ask for. So it's only there if for some reason we decide there's something additional you need to provide us. But right now I can't think of anything, and we don't really want you to put anything there. All right, so we're almost done here, probably about 10 more minutes. What we're going to do is I need to submit it now. Now remember, I have an error. I forgot to fill out one of the questions here. Let's ignore that. But I want to have my signatory do it, because remember, under status changes, I don't have the option to submit it. I'm a grantee only. So I want to have this other person at my organization, her name is Barbara Signatory. I want to have her log in and sign. She could simply log in, go to applications, find the one I started, and continue working on it. Or I could go to Management Tools, Add Edit People, and if I want to be nice, I can click on her name. You can see she's a grantee contract signatory. I'll hit save, and now Barbara actually will have it as a task. We can see her name is checked there. So if I log out, and I log in as her, I would have had the task too, by the way. If I had logged out and come back another day, I'd have it under My Tasks, because anything you start, you have a task for. So I clicked on My Tasks and open her tasks. She has a task for application number 5 because I just added it for her. But if she didn't have it, she could go to Applications, and she could just search for, again, the word animal, and it's basically saying, show me all applications that my organization has with the word animal in it. And there's only the one for my organization called Sample Organization, and I can click on it that way as well. Okay, so she probably should review it before she submits this. Let's pretend she doesn't notice that error. You can look at every individual page if you'd like. You're going to have to do that if you had uploads, which you don't here. But if you had uploads in your program-specific questions, because you can look at this print application, but it doesn't show everything. So let's click on it. And it wants me to print. I'm just going to cancel that. But this is kind of a one-pager of everything we just went through. We've got our program-specific questions and all the answers I provided. We've got the fact that I uploaded something here for 1E, but it doesn't show what it was. So that's one of the limitations of this preview, is you would have to go back and actually look at this view file here for 1E to see what you uploaded. But back to my preview. I can see my budget. Here's acquisition. Here's construction. Remember, we had 3 items or 2 items. Yeah, 3 items in construction. And here's administration, which I had nothing. And here's our summary. We've already validated that. We have our work plan overview form. And you can see that it doesn't show the objectives, task, performance measures right here. You do have to go back in here to your forms menu to verify that if you want to double check it. So back to work plan properties. It's just a limitation that we're working on, but this is, like I said, it was introduced on July 20th. We wanted to get it out there, and then we're going to tweak some of the things to clean it up a little bit. All right, so Barbara has gone through and looked at her application, and she thinks it's ready to go. We know it's not, because we know we've got an error. But let's try to submit it. Status change, application submitted. And it says, wait a minute, you forgot an upload for 3E. So I can click on it, right into the program-specific questions, and take care of that error. I could have done the same thing to check for errors if I went to Management Tools and check for errors. So all that's doing is checking to see, did you forget to do something that was a red asterisk, a required field? So let's go down to 1E, or 3E, and put it into my attachment, and hit save. All right, now the error is gone. Now if I try to submit it, if I did an error check here, it would give me no errors. You see no errors have been found. Now I can go and submit it. So let's just take a look at where we are. Our application is in the status of application in process. We can, when we submit it, it's going to change that status. We can see that there's no errors. We've run our error check. We've gone through. We've double-checked it. And we can now submit it. So she'll go to status changes and application submitted. Basically, it says this agreement is saying that you are who you say you are. You are allowed to submit on behalf of your organization, and you haven't given your password away. So I click on I agree. So remember, our application was in the status of application in process. If I was to click at details now here, it's in a different status, assignment of reviewers. So we've now submitted it. Ag and Markets has it in their hands, and when the due date comes and goes, they're going to assign reviewers and start reviewing your application. All right? So how else do I know that I submitted my application properly? Number one, I'll get an email. It'll say, congratulations, you submitted application number 5, this whole application number. Also, my task is gone. If I go back home, I don't have any tasks anymore. I took care of that task by submitting it. That doesn't mean I can't find the application. I can always go back to applications, search for the word animal, see that it's been sent to assignment of reviewers, but I can still click on it and look at it. I can't make any changes though, because it's been submitted. I can go here and program specific questions. You know, I can type, but I don't have a save button anymore. Now, if it's before the deadline, or I should say maybe well before the deadline, and you realize you submitted it and you wanted it back to make some changes, you can do that. You can ask our help desk and we'll send it back to you with the assumption or with the knowledge that you have to submit it again or it won't be considered submitted. So if you do that, that's okay. Call our help desk. We will ask you to submit in writing that you understand it's my responsibility to submit it before the due date again. All right, so let me look at some of these questions. The last thing that we're missing is I go to the forms menu, application versions. It takes, 5 or 10 minutes. We'll say, hopefully it's only going to be 3 to 5 for this, to create this PDF, and I want to show you that before we are done. So one last thing. We'll go to the forms menu. I just want to show you my application versions. It has been created at 12/29. So I'm in my forms menu. I've submitted my application, and I go to application versions, and I can see the document that really Ag and Markets will use to review my application. I can click on it. I can save it if I wanted to. I'm just going to open it. And this should be everything that we just saw and we just did. So cover page, application number 5, when I submitted it.
Take note that it's time stamped.
Yep. Yeah, and so just to follow up on that, sorry to interrupt you, Jeff. So last year we did run into problems where literally the first time that people were signing on to do this application was the day it was due. I think that's a recipe for disaster because it leaves you no room should you run into an issue. Please, please, please start your application early so that if questions come up, they can be addressed. We want people to be successful. The system has the hard, fast end date at 4 o'clock on the date that it's due. We have no ability to do anything beyond 4 o'clock because the system shuts down. If it's 4:01 and you call us, we can't help you.
And we also have all the data that shows what happened when, and sometimes people say, oh, the system was down. System is not down. It's a very robust network across the state. System does not go down. People will say that, they've been working on it all day or all week. We can tell the timestamps when you actually did. So just do it ahead of time and save yourself and all of us any headaches related to that.
And truly, we are here to help.
Yeah.
Please ask questions along the way. Don't get hung up on something. Again, if you have a question, someone else probably has the same question, and we will get the answer out to everybody.
Yep. So cover page, I'm asking for $200,000. Remember, for my $400,000 with a 50% match. That's how this one ended up. Who signed it? And this is what she agreed to. Then my actual application, my address, my answer to the questions. So 1, 1A, 1B, 1C. Remember 1E had an attachment. Now I don't see the attachment here, but I will in a minute. It's not going to be in the questions, it's going to be after the questions. But remember, I have an attachment for 1E. I have an attachment for 2A, for 2B. More questions and answers. And for finally 3E. So I think that was 4. I don't know if it was 4 or 5 I said, but I'll have 4 or 5 attachments here. So interestingly, it didn't show my attachment. That's interesting.
It still might. Sometimes the order gets mixed up, I've noticed.
It didn't. This is my test. This is our test system. I've never seen that before. I wouldn't be concerned about it. It will. That's the whole point of this. What it should have done is right here after question number, or after page number 11, it should show my attachments. I promise you it will. Again, you're not, by the way, you're not in trouble, or you're not, your application will not be frowned upon or will be scored lower if this PDF doesn't look right. This is just something to help the reviewers do it cleanly, but all that information is in here. We know for a fact that I did attach something to those questions. So I apologize it's not showing that, but I assure you it should and will in the actual live system. It's a shame, though, that I can't show that. So imagine those 5 attachments. And then we go on to page 11 here was my budget summary. There's my 200 and 200. My capital budget, detail for acquisition, for construction, and I didn't have anything else. And then my work plan, my up to 50,000 character summary, my details. Remember that junk objective 1 or 2 became objective 1 when I moved it up. So there's 1, 1.1, 1.1.1, and 2, and you can see the related tasks and performance measures. And then finally is that work plan organizational capacity page. If you had any other attachments, they would appear at the end here, but in this case, obviously, I don't have any. All right, so again, your attachments will be provided. They'll be showing right after the program-specific questions. In this case, it would have been starting on page 11.